chosen one, you've won, and they lost it. While they're sitting in psychiatric facilities and courtrooms facing the consequences of their spiritual warfare, you're walking in complete victory with divine protection that makes you absolutely untouchable. The universe just proved that no weapon formed against you can prosper, and now everyone gets to watch these people reap exactly what they sowed. The conspiracy started with your karmic connection, that ex of yours, that baby parent, that former romantic partner who couldn't handle your growth. This person became the perfect middleman for a much larger operation. There's a whole family involved in this: mothers, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, a complete network of people who held actual meetings about how to bring you down. These people literally sat around tables planning your downfall. They created fake death certificates with your name on them. They infiltrated churches and community centers, spreading lies about your character. They recruited people from your past to testify against you in social circles. They hired fake spiritual workers to cast confusion spells around your life path. You recognized the attacks early because your intuition started screaming warnings. While they thought they were being subtle, you began noticing patterns in the harassment. Your spiritual senses picked up on the organized nature of what was happening. Instead of ignoring these warning signs, you chose to trust your inner knowing and start protecting yourself. The timing of their attacks revealed coordination that ordinary harassment couldn't explain. Messages arriving simultaneously across different platforms, financial irregularities happening in clusters, social disruptions occurring whenever you made progress. These patterns showed planning and communication between multiple parties. Your analytical mind processed these coincidences as evidence rather than paranoia. You made the crucial decision to document everything: every strange interaction, every financial discrepancy, every attempt to manipulate your reputation. You kept records. This decision to remain aware and prepared would later become the foundation of your legal victory. They thought they were dealing with someone who would stay confused and reactive. They had no idea you were building a case. Your response to their initial attacks was to become more spiritually disciplined, not less. While they expected you to become defensive and emotional, you deepened your meditation practice and strengthened your connection to divine guidance. This unexpected response threw off their entire psychological warfare strategy. The centerpiece of their operation was financial theft. They used those fraudulent death certificates to access your bank accounts. They had inside connections at financial institutions who moved your money into foreign accounts. They used your personal information to create debt in your name. Your karmic connection was getting multiple people pregnant while obsessing over your every move online. You sensed something was wrong with your finances before the evidence became obvious. Your spiritual awareness translated into practical vigilance about your money and credit. You started monitoring accounts more closely, questioning unusual transactions, and building relationships with honest financial advisors who could spot irregularities. Your financial intuition guided you to check accounts you hadn't reviewed in months, leading to discoveries of unauthorized access attempts and suspicious activity reports. You implemented additional security measures on all financial accounts, requiring multiple forms of authentication for any changes. This proactive approach created barriers that slowed their theft operation and generated the paper trail that would later become crucial evidence. You diversified your financial holdings across multiple institutions, making it impossible for any single compromised contact to access your entire financial picture. Your strategic approach to financial security created redundant protection systems that frustrated their attempts at complete financial control. When you discovered the fake death certificates, instead of panicking, you immediately involved proper legal authorities. You understood that this level of fraud required professional intervention, not emotional reactions. Your decision to handle this through official channels while maintaining your spiritual center created the foundation for everything that followed. This wasn't random harassment. This was organized spiritual warfare designed to drain your life force and redistribute your abundance to people who hadn't earned it. They wanted to break your spirit, isolate you from your support systems, and force you into survival mode where you couldn't access your full power. You refused to stay in victim consciousness even when the attacks intensified. Instead of asking why this was happening to you, you asked what you were meant to learn and how you could use this experience to become stronger. This mindset shift changed everything about how the situation unfolded. The religious manipulation was particularly calculated. They knew that turning spiritual communities against you would create maximum damage to your reputation and social connections. They spread stories about your morality, your relationships, your character, all fabricated to make you look like the problem while they operated in the shadows. You addressed the religious character assassination by deepening your authentic spiritual practice rather than defending yourself to every community they contaminated. You found new spiritual connections based on genuine growth rather than trying to repair relationships they had poisoned. This allowed you to maintain your integrity while they exhausted themselves maintaining lies. The assault intensified as they realized you weren't breaking easily. Your karmic connection ramped up the harassment, creating what can only be described as a digital stalking campaign. They had teams of people spamming your social media, your professional accounts, every platform where you had a presence. It was relentless and coordinated. You responded to the digital harassment by completely changing your online strategy. Instead of trying to defend yourself on platforms they had invaded, you created new professional presence on different networks. You used their attacks as motivation to elevate your content and message to platforms they couldn't access or contaminate. The identity theft became more sophisticated. They were using copies of your birth certificate to make major purchases, open credit lines, and create financial obligations in your name. The person doing this was actually pregnant with your karmic connection's child while pretending to be you in various transactions. You stayed ahead of the identity theft by implementing identity monitoring services and credit freezes before the damage became extensive. Your proactive approach limited their ability to create long-term financial damage in your name. You treated your personal information like classified material, sharing it only when absolutely necessary and through secure channels. Inside the banking system, they had accomplices moving money across international borders. These weren't small-time scammers. They had access to institutional-level financial tools. They were treating your resources like their personal treasury, funding their entire operation with your stolen abundance. You built relationships with financial investigators and fraud specialists who could trace these sophisticated money movements. Instead of trying to handle complex financial crimes alone, you assembled a team of professionals who specialized in this type of institutional fraud. Your decision to invest in proper legal and financial expertise paid dividends throughout the investigation. The fake spiritual workers they hired weren't just spreading confusion, they were actively blocking divine communication from reaching you. Every time the universe tried to send you guidance or support, these people were working overtime to jam the signal. They wanted to keep you spiritually isolated and uncertain about your path. You maintained your direct connection to divine guidance by developing personal spiritual practices that didn't depend on external validation or community approval. While they were busy corrupting outer spiritual resources, you were building an unshakable inner connection that no external force could touch. Your karmic connection's behavior became increasingly unhinged, getting multiple people pregnant while maintaining an obsessive focus on your daily activities, drinking heavily, using substances, staying awake for days, tracking your movements. The person was essentially living two lives, family obligations with new partners and children, while secretly running a full-time surveillance operation against you. You protected yourself from this surveillance by becoming unpredictable in your routines and locations. You learned counter-surveillance techniques and began moving through life in ways that made tracking difficult. Your adaptability forced them to exhaust enormous resources, trying to monitor someone who had become essentially untraceable. You studied their tracking methods and developed countermeasures that turned their surveillance into a disadvantage. You used different routes to regular destinations, varied your timing for routine activities, and created false patterns to waste their monitoring resources. Your strategic unpredictability forced them to assign multiple people to track you, straining their operations budget and coordination. You established secure communication methods with trusted contacts that bypassed the platforms they were monitoring. Your technical knowledge about privacy protection grew exponentially during this period as you researched encryption, secure messaging, and anonymous internet access. These skills not only protected you, but later helped others facing similar harassment. This forced you into what became an intensive spiritual training period. You started moving frequently, staying off social media, disconnecting from old social circles. You thought you were just trying to escape the harassment. Actually, you were being guided into a powerful period of self-mastery and spiritual development. The Obsidian Inner Order isn't for everyone. It's for the ones who walked through hell smiling and came out glowing. You didn't come here to be liked. You came here to remember who you are, and we remember with you. This isn't a community, it's a war room for the spiritually elite, a headquarters for timeline jumpers, curse breakers, and reality benders. Every weekly Zoom call is a live frequency upgrade, where dragons speak, codes unlock, and the veil lifts. You'll get access to elite downloads, energetic technologies, and ancient transmissions that were never meant for the masses. Because let's be real, most people can't handle what you carry. Inside, you don't heal, you resurrect, you reclaim, you reign. Click the link in the description. If you're tired of surface-level fluff and ready to sit at the table of the anointed, then welcome to the Obsidian Inner Order, where you become the source. You embraced this period of isolation as an opportunity for accelerated growth, rather than viewing it as punishment or exile. You used the time away from normal social obligations to develop skills, study spiritual texts, and strengthen your connection to your life purpose. What they intended as isolation became your spiritual boot camp. During this isolation period, you developed abilities you didn't know you possessed. Your intuition became razor sharp. Your ability to see through deception and manipulation reached new levels. You learned to maintain inner peace while external chaos raged around you. You were literally being forged into a spiritual warrior. You practiced maintaining emotional neutrality while under attack, treating their harassment as training exercises for spiritual mastery. Each wave of negativity they sent became an opportunity to practice non-reactive awareness. You developed the ability to observe their attacks without absorbing their energy. The harassment intensified because they could sense your growing power. Your karmic connection was no longer operating as a human being. The jealousy and obsession had opened doorways for darker influences to take control. The person became consumed with rage, envy, and an insatiable need to control or destroy what they couldn't possess. While you were developing into your full spiritual potential, their entire operation began collapsing under the weight of its own dysfunction. You entered what spiritual traditions call the lotus energy, completely withdrawn from their drama while maintaining perfect inner harmony. You were living in a completely different energetic frequency. You pulled all your energy back from every connection that was draining you. This created a protective bubble around your life that they couldn't penetrate. While they were running around creating chaos and burning relationships, you were experiencing peace, clarity, and steady progress toward your goals. You mastered the art of energetic withdrawal without becoming isolated from positive connections. You learned to distinguish between healthy boundaries and fearful hiding. Your energy became so refined that toxic people literally couldn't maintain contact with you. Their own dysfunction made them uncomfortable in your presence. Something fascinating started happening with the money they stole. Every dollar they took from you became cursed in their hands. Relationships fell apart, health problems emerged, legal troubles multiplied. They thought they were stealing your abundance, but they were actually inheriting your spiritual lessons about integrity and consequences. You discovered that your elevated spiritual state was creating automatic protection around your resources. Money taken from you through deception couldn't maintain its value in the hands of people who weren't vibrationally aligned with prosperity. Your energy signature was so strong that it followed your stolen resources and created chaos for anyone misusing them. The metaphysical principle of energetic attachment to resources proved more powerful than any security system. Money that belonged to you carried your spiritual signature, creating disharmony for anyone who possessed it through dishonest means. Their financial problems multiplied exponentially once they started spending your stolen funds, as if the money itself was rejecting their ownership. You observed how your authentic prosperity consciousness created a stark contrast with their scarcity-based theft mentality. While they fought over stolen crumbs, you generated new abundance through aligned action and spiritual principles. Your continued financial growth despite their theft demonstrated the difference between earned and stolen prosperity. Your karmic connections' behavior became so erratic that they stopped leaving their residence. Paranoid, isolated, Googling legal penalties for various crimes while trying to maintain the harassment campaign. The drinking and substance use escalated as the spiritual pressure intensified. Close friends and family members started distancing themselves. You maintained your normal life activities while they descended into isolation and paranoia. Your ability to continue thriving while under attack demonstrated to everyone around you that their version of events couldn't be accurate. Your consistent positive energy became evidence that contradicted their claims about your character. The web of accomplices they recruited began turning against each other. People who were promised payment for their participation in the harassment campaign weren't getting paid. The inside person at the bank was facing career destruction and potential criminal charges. The fake spiritual workers were dealing with their own karmic backlash. You stayed completely detached from their internal conflicts while gathering information about the scope of the conspiracy. You let them destroy each other through greed and mistrust while you focused on building your legal case and spiritual protection. Their self-destruction saved you the energy of having to expose them individually. Your elevated spiritual state was making them increasingly desperate and irrational. They could sense that their window of opportunity was closing. Your energy signature had changed so dramatically that their attack methods were no longer effective. Where instead of draining your power, their efforts were bouncing back and amplifying their own problems. You learned to use their desperation as information about your own spiritual progress. The more frantic their attacks became, the more you realized you were moving beyond their reach. Their increasing desperation became confirmation that your spiritual development was working. The pregnancy situation with your karmic connection became a public scandal, multiple partners discovering infidelity, unplanned pregnancies, and involvement in criminal activities. The person was trying to maintain normal relationships while secretly obsessing over someone who had moved completely beyond their reach. You maintained complete emotional detachment from their personal drama while documenting how their behavior was affecting innocent people around them. Your refusal to engage with their chaos forced them to face the consequences of their actions without the distraction of your emotional reactions. Their support network started asking hard questions. Family members, friends, and romantic partners began realizing that this person's entire personality had been consumed by jealousy and revenge fantasies. The mask was slipping, and people were seeing the true nature of what they'd been supporting. You allowed the truth to speak for itself rather than trying to convince anyone about the reality of the situation. Your consistent behavior over time created a clear contrast with their increasingly erratic actions. People closest to them began reaching their own conclusions about what was really happening. You experienced what could only be described as divine protection. Every attack they launched seemed to redirect back to its source. Every lie they told was being exposed. Every theft they committed was being documented by people they trusted. You had unknowingly activated a level of spiritual immunity that made you untouchable. You maintained this protection by refusing to engage in revenge or retaliation, even when you had opportunities to expose them. Your commitment to taking the high road while they descended into chaos created a spiritual momentum that worked in your favor without requiring ongoing energy investment from you. Your restraint during moments when you could have destroyed them publicly demonstrated spiritual mastery that impressed even skeptics. You had access to information that could have ruined their reputations and relationships instantly, yet you chose to let natural consequences unfold instead. This decision created spiritual momentum that accelerated their downfall while protecting your own energy and integrity. The turning point came when someone inside their organization became an informant. One of their own accomplices gathered evidence and turned it over to authorities. The entire conspiracy was documented: the fake death certificates, the banking fraud, the organized harassment campaign, everything. You maintained cooperation with law enforcement while staying emotionally detached from the investigation process. Your decision to trust the legal system while maintaining your spiritual practices created space for justice to unfold naturally. You provided evidence without becoming consumed by the need for revenge. You won a significant legal victory without even fully understanding what you were fighting. The court system officially recognized that you had been the target of coordinated fraud and harassment. Legal documents started arriving at the homes of everyone involved in the conspiracy, while your karmic connection went into hiding. You handled your legal victory with grace and humility rather than celebration or vindication. Your response to winning demonstrated the spiritual maturity you had developed during the ordeal. You used the legal recognition as validation that you had been guided correctly throughout the entire experience. The exposure spread through official channels rapidly. Investigators traced the foreign money movements back to your stolen accounts. Federal agencies became involved due to the interstate and international nature of the financial crimes. The fake documentation they used to access your resources became evidence in multiple criminal cases. You cooperated fully with federal investigators while maintaining boundaries about your privacy and spiritual practices. Your willingness to assist with the investigation while protecting your personal well-being showed law enforcement that you were a credible witness with nothing to hide. Communication flowed from authority figures who had been investigating the situation longer than you realized. You started receiving official notifications, legal settlements, and formal recognition that you had been wronged. The truth was spreading faster than they could contain it. You received each piece of official vindication as confirmation that your spiritual guidance had been accurate throughout the ordeal. Instead of feeling vindicated or superior, you felt grateful that justice was unfolding without requiring negative energy from you. The family conspiracy began fracturing as members tried to save themselves. Brothers were confessing to spreading false stories about your character. Cousins were admitting to participating in the social media harassment campaigns. The mother figure who organized much of the operation found herself under legal scrutiny. You maintained emotional neutrality toward their confessions and legal troubles while appreciating that truth was finally being acknowledged publicly. Your refusal to gloat or seek additional punishment demonstrated that your motivation had always been justice and protection, not revenge. Religious communities that had been manipulated into spreading lies about you began asking for accountability. Church leaders and community organizers realized they had been used as weapons in someone else's revenge campaign. Public apologies and corrections started appearing in the same spaces where lies had been spread. You graciously accepted apologies from religious communities while using the opportunity to educate about the importance of verification before spreading information about others. Your response to religious leaders demonstrated forgiveness without naivety about how they had been manipulated. The banking investigation revealed the true scope of the financial crimes. Money had been moved through multiple countries using sophisticated networks that suggested this wasn't their first operation. Your case became part of a larger investigation into organized financial fraud, targeting individuals with significant resources. You provided information to banking investigators that helped expose a much larger fraud network than anyone initially realized. Your case became the key that unlocked understanding of how this criminal organization operated internationally. Your cooperation helped protect future victims from similar attacks. Your platform and influence began expanding dramatically during this period. The more they tried to silence you, the more attention your story attracted. You gained access to media platforms, social networks, and professional opportunities that elevated your voice and protected your narrative from further manipulation. The final phase unfolded when the family conspiracy reached a breaking point. They held actual meetings to decide who would take responsibility for the entire operation. Your karmic connection was selected as the sacrificial offering to protect the rest of the group from full legal consequences. You maintained emotional distance from their internal power struggles while documenting how their decisions affected innocent family members, especially children who had no involvement in the conspiracy. Your concern for collateral damage demonstrated your spiritual maturity and genuine character. A father figure within their family structure made the decision to cooperate with authorities rather than continue protecting someone whose behavior was destroying innocent people. This person chose to expose their own family member because the situation had become too dangerous and destructive to ignore. You appreciated this father figure's courage in choosing truth over family loyalty, while maintaining boundaries about not getting involved in their family dynamics. Your response to his cooperation demonstrated wisdom about accepting help without taking responsibility for their family healing process. The intervention process was swift and decisive. Mental health professionals were contacted, legal guardians were assigned, and your karmic connection was removed from society for everyone's protection. The person's drinking, substance use, and increasingly erratic behavior had reached levels that required institutional intervention. You supported the mental health intervention decision while maintaining complete emotional detachment from your karmic connection's treatment process. Your ability to support their mental health care without feeling responsible for their healing demonstrated healthy boundaries and spiritual maturity. The confession process revealed the full scope of their deception. Years of fabricated stories about your character, financial transactions, personal relationships, all documented and admitted to under legal pressure. The brother figures involved confessed to accepting bribes to spread false information about you in social circles. You received these confessions as validation of your spiritual discernment throughout the ordeal, while maintaining forgiveness for people who had been manipulated into participating. Your response to their admissions demonstrated that your motivation had always been truth and protection rather than punishment. Your abundance began returning through multiple channels simultaneously. Legal settlements, restored bank accounts, corrected credit reports, and new opportunities that more than compensated for what had been stolen. The universe was not only returning what was yours, but adding interest for the time and energy you lost. You managed your restored abundance with wisdom and gratitude, while using some of the resources to support others who had faced similar attacks. Your decision to share your blessings demonstrated that the experience had deepened your compassion rather than making you defensive about your prosperity. Spiritual protection around your life became absolute and undeniable. Every person who had participated in the conspiracy was experiencing consequences proportional to their level of involvement. Every lie was being corrected publicly. Every theft was being restored with additional compensation. You observed the natural consequences unfolding in their lives without feeling satisfaction about their suffering, while appreciating that justice was being served without requiring negative energy from you. Your emotional neutrality about their karma demonstrated complete spiritual detachment. The accomplices who had been promised payment for their participation turned against the operation completely. The bank insider lost their career and faced criminal charges. The fake spiritual workers were exposed in their communities and lost their client base. The social media harassers were identified and faced legal action. You maintained compassion for people who had been misled while supporting legal accountability for their actions. Your ability to separate the person from their behavior demonstrated spiritual wisdom about how people can be influenced by negative forces without excusing their choices. Your karmic connection's final status was complete isolation and institutional care. The person's father was cooperating with authorities, their siblings were distancing themselves legally, their romantic partners were seeking protective orders, and their children were being protected by other family members. You supported the protection of innocent family members, especially children, while maintaining complete emotional detachment from your karmic connections' institutional treatment. Your focus on protecting the innocent rather than seeking punishment demonstrated your spiritual priorities. You learned to release attachment to specific outcomes while maintaining clear boundaries about what you would and wouldn't accept in your life. The situation resolved itself through natural consequences and divine intervention without requiring ongoing energy investment from you. Your journey from target to victor became a teaching tool for others facing similar spiritual warfare. The universe used your experience to demonstrate that no weapon formed against the innocent prospers when they maintain their integrity and spiritual connection during attacks. You began sharing your story in ways that educated and empowered others while maintaining privacy about personal details that weren't necessary for the teaching. Your wisdom about what to share and what to protect became part of the lesson you offered to others. Your complete spiritual protection serves as evidence that righteousness and truth always prevail over deception and manipulation, regardless of how sophisticated or well-funded the attacks become. Your story proves that maintaining inner peace while under assault actually amplifies divine protection and accelerates the exposure of evil. You embody living proof that spiritual principles work in practical situations when applied with consistency and wisdom. Your experience demonstrates that trusting divine guidance while taking appropriate practical action creates outcomes that serve the highest good for everyone involved. The lesson resonates through every spiritual tradition and moral framework. Those who choose the difficult path of integrity while under pressure receive support from sources beyond human understanding. Your victory stands as permanent proof that choosing love over revenge, truth over convenience, and spiritual growth over retaliation leads to outcomes that exceed what human planning could achieve. You continue demonstrating that spiritual mastery isn't about avoiding difficult situations, but about maintaining your principles and inner peace while navigating challenges that would break people who depend only on human resources. Your life becomes ongoing evidence of divine protection and guidance. Your message echoes through time as a reminder to honor yourself and take the difficult road, because that path always leads to genuine victory and lasting peace. You prove that the universe supports those who choose spiritual growth over spiritual warfare, truth over manipulation, and love over revenge. Your legacy extends beyond personal victory to demonstrate universal principles of spiritual protection and divine justice. Every person who learns your story receives proof that maintaining integrity under extreme pressure creates outcomes that human planning cannot achieve. Your experience becomes a roadmap for others navigating similar spiritual battles. You embody the truth that chosen ones are not exempt from spiritual warfare, but are equipped with divine protection and guidance that ensures ultimate victory. Your journey proves that darkness cannot extinguish light, that lies cannot permanently overcome truth, and that love always conquers fear when applied with wisdom and consistency. The ripple effects of your spiritual victory continue expanding through every life you touch with your story. You demonstrate that overcoming organized spiritual attacks creates wisdom and compassion that serves the collective awakening of humanity. Your triumph becomes a beacon of hope for others facing seemingly impossible odds against organized deception and manipulation.